Hey, as everybody knows, as of yesterday, Chauvin was found guilty on all counts. I believe it was like second degree murder, second degree manslaughter, and something else. He's facing quite a bit of time. He gets sentenced in 8 weeks. I follow some police forums. I do. Not much as I used to. And on one of them, they're talking about how, be careful that they're getting ready. They're looking for our next white officer to throw under the bus, and it just, I guess it hit me that this wasn't a. One thing about law enforcement is there are cases where you have split second decisions with situations you're just getting into. You don't know what's going on. It's an unknown people, and sometimes you have to defend yourself. And sometimes officers use too much force. The George Floyd case was not one of those instances. This is not a case of chasing some guy and shooting him by accident. He's got a toy gun, which is wrong. But this is not what that was. This is a case of a police officer kneeling on a man for almost 9 minutes, I believe, with his full body, with hands in his pockets. The whole time the crowd is saying, hey, and you got a firefighter there, I think, a paramedic that's like, hey, something's not right. And they blew her off, and I think all of that, the narrative the right pushes, there's a war on police. And I think the George Floyd case showed you that that's not really true, that you have law enforcement that believes they're above the communities in which they serve, and that they don't have to cooperate with the community. This is in Great Britain. It's not the same political environment. It will never be. But this isn't a situational thing where the police are a part of the community. And that's, to me, the biggest thing of George Floyd. Telling the people, don't do drugs. This is what happens when you do drugs, and justifying it as in to say he deserves this type of treatment. He's in handcuffs. The whole thing, it was just very sneering. It was just sneering, and it was nasty. It was vicious. And I think many Americans get that. They get that. That's what this was. I mean, you had a paramedic here trying to tell you, and you wouldn't listen. You wouldn't listen because you wanted to kill him. You wanted to teach him a lesson, officer. And this man died as a result of your actions. The fact that those officers on Cedar Post see that video and their response is, well, they just want to make an example of a white officer. They want to throw the next officer under the bus. That bothers me. It bothers me because it shows a lack of humanity, and it shows you a person who has dehumanized the community in which they serve. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. It's a big problem, officer. Big problem. These officers, I've learned, whether it be body cams, whatever, they have an institutional resentment towards change. Doesn't matter if it's good change or bad change. There is an institutional resentment of change, even if it betters the community. They don't care. I remember reading one of them. It's another forum. They were talking about the tasers and no. They were talking about the mental health police. People have mental breakdowns. They'll have certain police units come out just to talk to them. People that are suicidal, bipolar, and the idea. I saw a documentary on it in Kansas City. A lot of these people off their meds, And if you get them help and you connect them to the healthcare out here, they're less likely to be out here committing crimes. They're less likely to have those calls of service because they're off their meds. They're less likely to engage in those harmful behaviors. That's the long term. But the short term effect is, hey, these people, these aren't bad people. These are people who simply have medical problems. And this cop on there, he was talking about how they're going to make us into the fire department. And he was referring to how the fire department isn't doing what they once did, which is like backdraft types, like the backdraft movie. Because now in the real world, we have what? We have sprinklers. I have a sprinkler in here. We have fire alarms. I have a fire alarm in here. We have, we got that. You see it right there. We've got these things where they don't have to. The world is a safer place. And his worry was that if we become like that as police officers, and it just got me that that's an inappropriate response, officer. Your response should be, is this good for the community or is this bad for the community? Period. Nothing else. It shouldn't be anything else. You shouldn't be talking about the color of the uniforms. You shouldn't be talking about the sound of the siren. You shouldn't be talking about any of that bullshit. You shouldn't be talking about the motto. It should be about what works for the community or what doesn't. And if that's not where your mind's at, then we've got a real problem. We've got a real problem here at the very base level, because you maybe shouldn't be a police officer. So this, the world changes. Things evolve. Society changes. You have to get used to it. Get to it. But the idea that officers really feel as though seeing Chauvin get convicted of the murder and and I'm not putting George Floyd up as a saint. I just think the George Floyd story is one that many of us can emphasize with. I had a good job before the pandemic. I worked doing the mail. I worked my way up from delivering Napa auto parts, getting dirty, and setting off the security alarms and driving all night, and made good money though. But I was doing that, worked my way up, did flatbed, worked my way all the way up to delivering postal service mail. And then I got a job doing it, driving from the airport, which is a really good job. And I had to share a truck with nobody or nothing. Volvo truck. Running to California and stuff. And I lost it because of the pandemic. Lost all that. March was a bad month for me. And so I can understand, I can empathize a person that lost everything. Trust me, I can. And I think many people out here can as well. George Floyd caught COVID. It's his story is something that's easy to understand. I looked at that and it reminded me of what we're really dealing with here. I have a friend of mine I worked with, and he thinks this white guy. He thinks the educational thing bullshit. These cops know what they're doing. These cops know what they do, what they know, what is right, what is wrong. They know what they're doing. We're well beyond that point now. We're at the point now to where they've got to understand consequences for their actions. It's not education. I mean, I've actually got a body cam right here. Yeah, see, I've got a body cam right here. I actually got one off eBay a long time ago. I wanted to see how they worked and everything. I mean, they're very easy to use. You can put this is the old one. You can put this on your glasses, put on your shirt lapel. You can put on your glasses. It's all kind of little things for it. These things are extremely easy. And I remember even knowing that in the beginning, like when they weren't putting with the cameras on, I'd be like, what's the big deal? It's not because they don't know how to, it's because they don't want to. And that's where I am now, is understanding that we've just got this segment of law enforcement that's just doing their own thing. They're on some other shit. There's some other idea of what they're preserving in society, and they need to be dealt with. They need to be dealt with. That needs to be dealt with. I'm serious. This is it's not a matter of lack of understanding or training or education. No, it's none of that. It's none of that. None of that. None of that. It's a matter of values. Oh, by the way, I didn't know this. This is the camera. This is 161. Mine is 161. This is the camera. This is um, this is the battery. So yeah, it's one of the old ones. Very easy to use, and that's when I started to understand that it is an equipment. They hated the dash cams back in the day. You've just got an institutional resentment in law enforcement, in the institutions. It's just what it is. Resentment of change. And that's bad, man. That's bad that as a police officer, you don't look at Derek Chauvin and say, Mr. Chauvin, you are an embarrassment to law enforcement everywhere. That you put a smudge upon the badge that we all wear, and you are an embarrassment to the oath that we all have taken. May your name be struck off of the list of sworn officers, and may you be forgotten to the annals of history. That's appropriate. That's righteous. And I saw there's some police agencies that they've used it as a chance to speak out and make their statements. But rather than that, these officers' responses have been to, well, they're going to come after the next white officer. And what gets me is, you don't look at it as a lesson of what not to do. You look at it as, well, he just got caught. I just understand that. That's just what we're dealing with out here. So we're dealing with. This is the caliber of individual that's wearing a uniform. Thank you for listening.